Schools plan to send home whole year groups as COVID fears are mounting. And so this is real. This is by a Camilla Turner. And so schools are going to be impacted because of shortage of staff, and they already are. Especially here in LA County, we're dealing with shortages of staff. So schools are drawing up plans to send whole year groups home amid growing concerns of this new variant that the COVID Omicron variant will lead to staff shortages spiraling out of control in January, because head teachers have warned that the prime minister that they may be forced to prioritize key age groups for time in the classroom while others are told to learn remotely. So the biggest threat to keeping children to face-to-face education will be high numbers of teachers forced into isolation after testing positive for COVID-19, because this Omicron is spreading so fast, and they're saying by sometime maybe by February or by even April that most people will have come across it or had it. So primary schools in the villages, it says, and the small towns are understood to be considered Whitehall officials as especially at risk of teacher shortages, given that they have small numbers of staff. So government have already admitted that schools are likely to face disruptions until Easter, and is urging retired teachers to return to the classroom to fill gaps in timetables. And so that's how bad it is. So people who are retired, they're going to require them to come back and help out where the shortages are most crucial, where they need someone to fill in the gap. So sources of the Department of Education said that their dedicated website aimed to encouraging former school staff to sign up as supply teachers. So this had been visited around 20,500 times since it was launched a week ago. So they were unable to confirm how many people had actually signed up to the scheme, estimating that it was at least hundreds. But head teachers and parents fear that the scheme will not be enough to stem the tide of teachers' absences and keep schools fully open next term. So this is the threat of some school districts in certain areas of some places in some states that are having like the impact of this disease. So Geoff Barton, the General Secretary of the Association of School and College Leaders, said that head teachers were hoping for the best but planning for the worst as well. So he told Telegraph that if you have a fixed pool available of those who can teach young people, then the only final resort schools and colleges have is to start thinking about the certain year groups that should be prioritized in the short terms. And so Boris Johnson will meet government scientists and advisors on Monday morning for an update on how quickly the Omicron variant is spreading and its impact on hospitalizations and death rates as well, because people are dying from it as well. So by Sunday evening, no recall of Parliament had been announced. Similarly, no urgent meeting of the cabinet to discuss tightening the COVID rules had been called. So government insiders continue to say that it is possible no new COVID restrictions. This is in England, for England will be announced before New Year's Eve. And so the UK is being pounded hard with lockdowns and with the spread of Omicron, and people are starting to fill up the hospitals like rapid lightning speed. But they stress that the situation remains fluid. On Sunday night, this having to do with schools, that is, so on Sunday night it was reported that weddings and funerals will be exempted from the new COVID restrictions, but if it has decided that tougher measures are needed, one avenue open, the Downing Street, is to publish new guidance, for example, on limited household mixing. And so they're actually going through it. So we're seeing other states that are being hit hard, and other states there where the numbers are low and you don't really see anybody going to the hospital as of yet. So it's acting unevenly right now. in certain places. But from what they're saying, it's just like a time bomb ticking. It's just waiting to explode in other places as well. So that's where they're looking at, but they have not put a stop to it. It just keeps spreading and spreading. It seems to get worse, and it's causing people to go berserk. And so some people have gotten so desperate that they just walk in, take food, and leave. And it is bad. And so, and nobody stops them because they have such a shortage of staff. They don't have enough people to, they don't have enough security, enough people to stop those people from going into those places. And so one avenue open up Downing Street is to publish new guidance, for example, on limited household mixing, so which would not need legal changes and could be adopted without Parliament being recalled. So officials of the DFE wrote that head teachers early this month, telling them to revisit their outbreak plans and ensure contingency plans that are up to date so that they are prepared for any future changes in January. And so I will go on and tell you what's happening in LA County as well. But Mr. Barton said that this week the heads would be scenario planning for the new term, and explained that this included making decisions about what would be the priority groups coming back and if they were needed. And so if you can't have all the children in the start of the term, then it goes on to say that who would you prioritize? So he said that one approach would be to keep 11 and year 13 in the school face-to-face lessons, while the other year groups are sent home to learn remotely. And so they're divvying up who gets to go to school and who. Pretty soon this will be an issue here, and it already has started in LA County. So to kind of go along and pair with this. So originally they had planned by December 17th, if children were not vaccinated, they could no longer come to school because they had to be vaccinated. This was in LA County, but now they're trying to extend that date and give people more time to vaccinate. I don't know if this is going to be successful or not. So there are some people who are electively doing remote learning, and some people are they're turning to the City of Angels, who in LA County is supposed to teach the kids by remote, so by computer. And so they're not face-to-face learning. So some parents have pulled their kids out of school because they don't want their kids to get vaccinated. And then others that have put their kids in school are worried that their schools will have a shortage of staff, stagnant hours, and maybe some other issues that could occur. And they test every week. The kids are tested every week, and they have like a number showing whether the child or the staff is positive. And if they are, they're to quarantine and they can't come back until their test shows that they are free of the COVID. But this could be a problem with this new variant spreading. So that could create or pose a new problem with teachers not being able to come to work because they don't clear for the to be safe enough to go into the classrooms. So that could affect a lot of people's jobs as well. Again, and it also could affect whether schools stay open depending on how many people get infected with this new variant. And so that's how it impacts here in LA County. But it says here, we feel that this is the UK, what they're going through. We're kind of like mirroring, seeing what their experience is. So we feel that we owe, back to the article, the young people GCSEs and A levels, because we already know that the time is being disrupted and what we want to make it normal as we can, he said. So it has also emerged that the leader of the government-backed remote learning platforms has issued a warning that the number of children missing school is like to grow over the winter. And that's what could happen because of all of the gatherings, the holiday get togethers, and people not really focused on this COVID. They've been trying to put it out of their mind, even though they know it's there, because you want to see your loved ones. And then some people know what's going on, and they're fearing that maybe this is the last holiday season that they might see their loved ones, depending on what goes on. Matthew Hood, the principal of the Oak National Academy, has written on to the internet giant BT to demand that the site's zero rating is restored so that the pupils stuck at home next term will be able to access it free of charge. So BT has said that it was urgently reviewing whether it could be done. So family groups have warned that the entire year groups are told to learn remotely, and this would make life impossible for working parents as well. And so this could also impact here, like in LA County, we're already having working parents having to try to figure out what they're going to do about their kids since their kids have to be remote. And so it's affecting a lot of people in a lot of ways. So family groups have warned, okay, so it says that it hampers the country's economy recovery by forcing them to stay at home and supervise children as well. So Molly Kingsley, founder of the parent campaign group Us for Them, said the government's plan to encourage ex-teachers back to the classroom was an acknowledgement that this is a very serious situation, but she added that the campaign was meaningless unless there was political weight behind it. And so you would have to run it like a military operation backed up by operational and financial resources. But just sending out a tweet won't cut it. And so Robert Halfon, a Tory chairman, the Education Select Committee, said, I'm concerned that even if the government says they want to keep schools open, schools will continue to send hundreds of thousands of children home. Okay, so the schools are closing. If they're closing or sending a lot of kids home, they should set up task force for the schools to work with them to keep them open. So they can't just say this and then they've got to mean it, of course. So don't just say it, mean what you say. So Carolyn Ansell, the Conservative MP of Eastbourne, Sir Michael Wilshaw, the former head of Ofsted, are among those taking part in the government scheme to encourage the ex-teachers back to the classroom. So the drive is part of a wider concern for the government about the impact of the surge of an infections triggered by Omicron variant among critical workers in key industries. So to help ease pressure on the workforce is required period to self-isolate after testing positive with COVID. That was cut from 10 days to 7 days if the person shows a negative lateral flow test result. And so that's how bad they need people in the schools, that they're even willing to take you back right away quickly as long as it's showing that there's a negative test result. And so as soon as possible. So they've even cut the number of days to quarantine. So that is really crucial. So the impact of Omicron surge on a critical national infrastructure, including areas such as food supply, transportation, is being closely monitored by ministers. And so the DFE spokesperson said that we know children and young people want to be in the classroom, and it is best place for them and their education and well-being, but which is why protecting face-to-face education continues to be absolutely a priority. And so that's what they're trying to do. But this Omicron is giving some places a beating, and we're not seeing it in some areas. People are not even really focused on it because it's not happening in their state like it is in some states. But it's alarming that they got people filling up the hospitals in record speed. It's bad like that. And so schools, if they plan to send home whole year groups as COVID fears mount, just think, if this is happening over in other places, it's like, when will it happen in your community? When will it happen in your school district? That is the question.